In the years preceding World War I, motorcycle racing in the United States had grown from amateur grudge matches to unrestrained, factory-supported dogfights on board-track motordromes, flat tracks, and road courses. With Harley-Davidson entering the sport in 1914, the two central competing brands, Indian and Excelsior, found themselves in a three-way battle against a well-funded and laser-focused adversary. Local flat tracks continued to rise in popularity, and the GP-style Dodge City 300 road race had become the country's premier event. Still, as Class A factory racing favored the long-distance Grand Prix events, the lack of control over such venues made ticket sales and safety precautions a significant challenge for promoters. By 1915, America's most prominent motorcycle manufacturers, known as the Big Three of Indian, Excelsior, and the newly arrived Harley-Davidson, were geared up for the fight. But as the gates of America's infamous motordromes closed, a new type of board track would soon emerge. Do you like videos like these? Let us know by liking and subscribing, share with your friends, and if you want to support the project more, head over to the Archive Moto Patreon page and help keep this history alive. Inspired by the success of the large speedways in Indianapolis and Atlanta, and in conjunction with the rising popularity of adapted road courses in Dodge City and Elgin, famed motordrome pioneer Jack Prince reimagined his successful timber saucers for a new age. Prince leaned into his previous experiments in bicycle and motorcycle track layouts, scaling the concept of a timber track to the size better fit for the increasingly capable machines. Yet another factor in Prince's decision to go big with his board track idea was the rising popularity of automobile racing, which had continued to gain traction as the technology became more accessible to the masses. In 1910, Prince had first experimented with the idea of a larger board track with the circular 1-mile Los Angeles Motordrome at Playa del Rey, but the size and interest weren't quite right. However, by 1915, all of the needed factors were in place to support a brand new type of board track in the United States. Though the smaller circular motordromes of the early teens were no small effort or expense to construct, Prince's new extra-large wooden ovals, with their flat straightaways and banked turns, would be mammoth projects. These new timber speedways would be built using millions of board feet of lumber, hundreds of tons of nails, thousands of cubic yards of concrete for the foundations, and multiple acres of land, none of which came cheap. It was in June 1915 when eager racing fans poured into America's massive new racetrack. At 2 miles long, the wooden oval at Speedway Park in Chicago's Maywood suburb was America's first board track speedway, the first of its kind in the world. Construction began in late 1914 and occupied 230 acres of farmland just west of downtown Chicago. The design took the building techniques of earlier circular board track motordromes and scaled them up several times over. Instead of a constant circular banking with grandstands perched precariously along the upper rim, the track at Speedway Park elongated the course into a familiar oval. This allowed the corners to feature steep banking while leaving the straightaways level for higher flat-out speed. The oval shape also allowed the grandstands to be enlarged to accommodate tens of thousands of spectators while keeping them safely removed from the action. Upon completion, Speedway Park used 14 million board feet of expensive yet smooth and fast poplar 2x4s, 500 tons of nails, 50,000 cubic yards of cement, 15,000 concrete piers, 1,000 tons of steel, and over 6 miles of new roads leading to the venue. The high-speed poplar boards were laid 60 feet wide on the straights, with an extra 10 feet of width in the corners, banked at 19 degrees. Opening day was June 26, 1915, with former motor pacer turned auto racing icon Barney Oldfield hitting a blistering hot lap of 111.5 miles per hour in front of the 80,000 spectators in attendance. Soon the elites of motorcycle competition from the Big Three factory teams, names like Otto Walker, Joe Walters, Carl Gowdy, and Gene Walker, would be smashing speed records on the boards of Chicago's Speedway Park. A new boom in track racing and construction had arrived, and in 1915 alone, similar tracks sprang up in Tacoma, Omaha, Des Moines, and Sheepshead Bay. Still, in 1916, professional motorcycle racing was suspended given America's seeming inevitable involvement in World War I, and many of the country's top competitors enlisted for duty. The Federation of American Motorcyclists, the country's sanctioning body since 1903, dissolved, and a new organization, the Motorcyclist and Allied Trades Association, took its place in 1919. Professional racing also returned in 1919 after a 3-year hiatus, with a season bookended by 2 spectacular 200-mile races. The first took place at Los Angeles' Old Ascot Park, and the second, a Grand Prix in Marion, Indiana, both dominated by Harley's reassembled factory team. In the first few years of the Roaring '20s, thoroughbred machines, world-class venues, and factory teams overflowing with superstars made for some of the most ferocious and exhilarating racing the country had ever seen. Over the next decade, another 17 massive board-track speedways were completed from Beverly Hills to Altoona, Pennsylvania, hosting the world's best auto and motorcycle racers well into the 1920s and providing a home for the fastest men on earth. Though many manufacturers had met their demise in the lean years of the Great War, the battle between America's Big Three reignited. These were the years of Harley-Davidson's fabled Wrecking Crew, a factory team stacked with legends who defined the quintessentially American brand. However, the team itself was only together for 3 years before the motor company pulled the plug on its racing program in 1922. A few of the Wrecking Crew retired, some signed with Indian and Excelsior, and a handful continued racing Harleys under special contracts or on board machines they purchased after the 1921 season. At the start of the decade, the Prohibition era was a time of purebred Class A competition in which fearless men consistently pushed what was thought possible on 2 wheels. However, the 1920s also marked the end of the first golden age of American motorcycle racing, and by the close of the decade, American enthusiasts had smaller engines, abandoned tracks, and far fewer racing heroes to look up to. The sun was setting on the massive and costly board-track speedways, with the last events sputtering out as the 1930s approached. When the markets crashed in 1929, few were spared, and the Big Three all struggled to stay afloat. Innovation slowed, factory racing all but vanished, and for Excelsior, 1931 marked the end of the road for the storied American motorcycle brand. Harley-Davidson and Indian held on by streamlining their approach, focusing on style and simplified engineering, centering on flathead engines and middleweight displacements. As the mammoth speedways closed, the half-mile dirt tracks nurtured a withering sport, while the unique spectacle of the motorcycle hill climb began to curry the favor of the culture. The first grand age of Class A American motorcycle racing was drawing to a close, but a new class would soon emerge on the flat tracks and hills across America, a more inclusive class, the everyman's class, the AMA Class C.